Hey guys, this is Whitney, and welcome back to an episode of Spastic Chatter. Spastic Chatter is a platform meant to feature those in the cerebral palsy community. I get together weekly with people in the cerebral palsy with people who have cerebral palsy like myself each week to have an uncensored chat about what it's really like living with this type of disability. And for this week, I have Nathan Todd. And I've already, funny stories, I've already interviewed Nathan for my actual job. I work at Able Thrive, and I thought he had a cool story. From what I've from the Able Thrive article, Nathan's work focuses on loneliness and disability, and he calls himself the loneliness coach. So he's, I guess you could I would sum up as a life coach for people with disabilities. And I just thought he had a really interesting story. So we're gonna dive deeper into the life of the loneliness coach this episode. So I will let Nathan take it away for his introduction.
Well, first and foremost, Whitney, thanks for having me on the show. I love any opportunity to spread awareness, whether it's around cerebral palsy, disability in general, or how to support people who may be dealing with loneliness or may be someone who's going through some life transition and trying to figure out the best way for them to move forward. For those of you who are meeting me for the first time, before I was ever the loneliness coach, I worked for 9 years at a Center for Independent Living, so I worked directly with people with disabilities, and we worked every day to combat the statement of I can't. That was the statement that I heard most every day, and it would come from the people I was working with. It would come from their family members. It would come from all these places. And so the disability community, as part of being part of it, obviously, but also working in it, is a big part of what I do. And then the way I ended up being the loneliness coach was I started to look at the work I was doing and started to question, well, this isn't just a disability issue. This is a human being issue that we're working on every day. And so I started to say, how can I make a bigger change in the world? Because it's not just, again, not just a disability issue. It's an everybody issue, and it's things that everybody's dealing with. And especially where we are right now with everything going on. I don't know about you, but my emotions are processing and trying to figure out where I fit and what I can bring to the table for the world where we are right now. Because one of the things I know is living with a disability, we know very much what it's like to be dealing with the issues that are happening in the world right now, even if we aren't a part of the Black community. We definitely can relate to what's going on with that community at this moment in time. I believe that for sure.
I believe that too. So that's kind of where I can relate to your story because I've worked in independent living I worked in an independent living center, and I can totally hear my consumers say that I can, every time I like ask them to do something, they're like, I can't do that. And I'm like, well, believe me, if I can do it with a disability like yours, you can there's no reason that you can do it that you can't do it. So I can totally relate to that, and I think that's a really positive message. Okay, well, first off, can you tell us like a little about how you grew up and like how about growing up with a disability? How did that impact your mental health? Because I know my experience. It wasn't all. It was like there. Of course, there. Like I had a really good childhood, but it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. So, how was your childhood growing up with a disability, and how did
Yeah, so spend a lot of time talking about that, and I would say the greatest gift in childhood is the fact that my parents and my brother didn't treat me any different than anybody else. My mom would say, "This is what the cards we got, so you've got to figure out how to deal with them because you're living with this for the remainder of your life. This is going to be something you deal with on a regular basis." So that was really important for me growing up. And also, when I was younger, my mom, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I supported her in finding her voice. And through that, when she found her voice, it was advocating for parents through the March of Dimes organization. And because of that, I became an ambassador. And so she would take me wherever she was speaking, and I would participate there. So I got to see like advocating at a really early age. But I would say, yeah, it's not always easy growing up. But the funny thing is, I don't think you realize all the stuff that you actually go through until you get way past
Yeah, totally agree.
that stuff.
Yeah, like you were
Yeah,
saying
go ahead.
you were saying that your parents didn't treat you any differently. I grew up with a twin and two other siblings, and I was treated no different. And it wasn't until I got older that I like when I was out of high school age and up that I realized that my mental health was not. I kind of got in a slump because I began to realize that when like the world hit that I am a little different, and I had to come into my own as an adult with a disability and realize that I'm just gonna have to live life like this is what I was dealt. I'm just gonna have to live. I'm just gonna have to live that way. So yeah.
And the funny thing is, like, words are so powerful, and the feeling of being different, being less than, uh, some of those feelings that I think people feel a lot of times. Everybody actually feels those, I would say, but people don't talk about them.
Yeah.
And I think that's also something that we're seeing right now. And one of my phrases is, and I probably get a lot of flack in the disability community for this, but I believe it 100%. It's called angry disabled person syndrome. And so
Totally. I already know where you're going with this.
that,
I back this wholeheartedly. So if you
yeah,
want to
that
explain what that is.
exists, and it exists, and I know it because I used to be that person all the
Yeah.
time, where I would be hyper reactive to anything anybody said, and at the end of the day, that didn't support me in getting where I wanted to go with anything. It just made people say, "Oh, there's another angry
Yeah.
disabled person,"
They put it in.
and it's it's interesting because I'm not telling you that anger isn't an important emotion. I think that it is, but I think the way that you use it is oftentimes more damaging than helpful, because think to yourself, how do you respond to angry people? You probably want to get out of that situation as fast as possible. And so you don't really get to show people who you really are when you show up in that space. And it's so much better if you can get to a place where you can say, I just want people to understand me a little better and be able to talk without coming from that place of anger. And trust me, it doesn't happen 100% of the time, for sure.
Exactly. So I so here's another topic that we can discuss. Do you wanna talk about the no label defines me? Is that kind of different than the loneliness coach, or is it kind of the same, or you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so no label defines me is the overarching message of everything that I do. And here's my thought process behind that. First and foremost, I believe that labels are the thing that create the most loneliness in the world. And I would assert that the biggest label that gets in any of our ways is the label of supposed to. So we're walking around with this label that says, I'm supposed to have this job. I'm supposed to uh, go to school. I'm supposed to get married by this age. I'm supposed to XYZ, insert whatever that is for you. Um, and for us in the community, unfortunately, I think some of those supposed tos are like, I'm supposed to be on Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to not have a job. I'm supposed to just be grateful to be here. Or I'm supposed to be grateful to just have this type of job. I think those are very real labels that people walk around with and ideas just because they don't see any other possibilities. So, no label defines me is about saying that, I mean, we walk around, and if we were at a networking meeting, you'd have a label with your name on it and it'd say, hello, my name is. And I think we're walking around with invisible labels that are stuck to us, and that we reflect back to people that we meet. So the great thing about labels is they can be peeled away and you can rewrite something brand new on it if there's a label that you don't like. But it's really important to understand that even though I say no label defines me, labels exist and they're very powerful. The point is you get to choose what you want to represent you. You don't have to stay with the ones that you were given by somebody else who are now stuck to you. If they don't serve you, if they don't make you feel like the best version of you, peel it off and start to reframe that. And that's part of what I do in coaching, is talk about labels and talk about your very specific label, and then we formulate a plan of how do we reframe that so that you can create what you want. Because 100% of the people that I work with at the end of the day, when they talk about their label, it comes down to really one thing, and it's the fact that they don't feel like they're good enough.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Like, how can that the no label to like what you just described, the labels and all that stuff, that really resonates with me personally. And like the way you explained it, like it just made so much sense. Um, but you have a podcast too, right? For the no label defiance. Do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's No Label Live, and much like this show, it's mainly on YouTube and Facebook. Um, and so what it's been up until this point is people coming on and talking about their life stories and labels that have gotten in their way. I've had a lot of people with disabilities and people with all kind of different disabilities on the show, and then I've had people without disabilities on the show. And the funny thing is, it doesn't matter which one you are. You've got a label that has at some point held you back, and you've figured out a way out of that. And then what I'm working on now is actually getting people who are interested in live coaching. I want to do live coaching on the show. Like, that's the next thing that's going to happen for the show for me. But yeah, it comes out every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And like last week, I had my friend Kia was on, and she's someone who talks about her mast cell disease. And that was an interesting conversation because I know you know this is working in a Center for Independent Living. It was all about, she talked a lot about the fragrance and how much that can impact somebody's life when you see that sign, no fragrance or fragrance free zone. And that was an interesting conversation to have.
That seems like it'd be very interesting because people don't realize, like when I worked in a, like when I didn't work in an independent living center, I was working in one in Austin, and I was working there for like a couple months, and then they all of a sudden they implemented the no fragrance policy. And at first I didn't understand why, and then they like explained why, and I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. So like nobody, like that's a good advocating thing to make people aware of the no fragrance policy.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, there are some I don't know. Would you say, or do you call them disabilities, or there are some disabilities that are I don't want to sound ignorant. I don't want to word this improperly. So
well,
do you want to word it?
I'll explain it. Yeah, I'll explain it that way. So what happens is, for her, based on all kind of different factors, so fragrance in the air, it could be pollen in the air, like all kind of different things. Histamines get released in her body, So basically, if she runs into somewhere where they don't abide by the fragrance-free policy, it's basically pitting her body against itself because all these histamines are being released, and so it basically wipes her out and could potentially lead to her dying.
Yeah.
Like, that's how serious it is, and most people don't understand that part of it, that something could lead to somebody dying for sure.
Yeah. That's just a little tidbit for advocacy for that type of for the fragrance free policy. Getting back to the topic, I love how you said that you have disabled individuals and and people without disabilities on your podcast, because we all I feel like we all have some kind of stereotype that we're trying that we all fit into some kind of stereotype, and it's about breaking. We all have to break through those stereotypes. So I like how you said that you have to work. We're kind of all the same in that group, in that sense, disabled or not. Um, so what do we spent all this time talking about mental health and things like that. What are some of your hobbies? Like what are some of your hobbies that help you cope with